Our resource person Somashekhar sir will continue the session. Over to you, sir.
Okay, then the next session is about inferential statistics. Then naturally there is a question, why the subject is divided into descriptive statistics, inferential statistics, and other forms of statistical techniques. So in descriptive statistics, they are only mathematical measures. They compute mathematically, which are the characteristics of data, which can be applied for data which come by a census method or a sample method. It can be applied both in population and sample. If you apply these statistical measures in a population, you will get the exact value if the quality of the data is perfect. So there is no uncertainty or ambiguity in the value obtained from the population. So these type of measures are called population parameters. For example, the mean of the population, standard deviation of a population, skewness or kurtosis, any measure which computed from the population data. And also you see, then these are parameters and these are constants. There is no possibility of variation. For example, suppose in a class there are 50 students. Their marks in a subject is available. And what is the average mark of students in that subject? You can compute it. There will be a single value. But suppose I take a random sample of 10 students from the class by a random method. So in each selection, the value may be different. Okay. First, I administered a selection method and selected 5 or 10 students and computed their average mark. And again, I repeat the sample. I will get different people and I will get a different value. So if you apply a sampling method, random sampling method, these characteristics will be a variable and their variables are random variables. Because the values of the variables depends on the outcome of the random trial. The experiment is repeated, the students selected will be different. Naturally, the values will be different and you will get a different value. So if you find out some measures on population, that measures will be constants and they are called parameters. But if you apply the same measures on samples, random samples, the values will be a variable and that variables are called random variables. But in making inferences, the population parameters are known. That means the population is available. You can find out the exact value. There is no need of making inference about that parameter value. But if you are applying a sample, since the values are variables, and there is a possibility of error, that is called standard error on the estimate. And now there is a question, what will be the confidence of choosing that estimated value? How much confidence you have in choosing that estimated value? For example, first I selected 10 students. Their mark is estimated as 55 out of 100 with a standard error of 15 marks. I selected another set of students. The marks is estimated as 63 with a standard error of something you call 18 marks. But the actual mean of all the 15 students is 60, exactly 60. That is a constant. So now the question is, if the mean is 55 and the standard error is 15, and in another case, which is something 63 and standard deviation is 18. So what is the confidence of accepting these two values as the exact value 60? So we have to test whether the difference between 55 and 60 is significant in this sample, or the difference between 63 and 60 is significant in that particular sample. And this problem is handled in inferential statistics. So here we concern with making inferences about population parameters based on samples taken from those populations. Okay. Suppose you measured something many times and you get certain values. You can compute the mean value and also you can compute the standard error. But the question is whether this value estimated is same as the exact value. If they are not same, what is the confidence of accepting this value as that one? Because sometimes it will be, you can say that it is true in 95% cases. It can be true in 90% cases. It can be true in 99% cases, etc., etc. So under these inferential statistics, there are two major divisions: estimation and testing. Estimation means you find out a value, estimate a value of the population parameter. As you know, estimates are the values assigned for the population parameter. But you cannot assign a value as you wish. So there are certain methods of estimation. Okay. They're called methods of moments, maximum likelihood estimate, etc. There are different kinds of estimates. Estimation procedures are there. And by these procedures, we develop the best suitable estimate of each parameter, or what will be the best estimate of what we call mean value, what will be the best estimate of standard deviation, etc. are available. Theoretically, these things are available. And in some other problems of higher model construction, etc., there also we have to estimate the parameters of the models. And we use different procedures there. For example, principle of least square procedure that you might have see this in regression modeling or linear modeling or non-linear modeling, etc. Or maximum likelihood procedures are there, and many other procedures are available. Anyway, wherever you estimate the parameter value, you have to test the hypothesis of the value of that parameter. And in this case, the normal distribution play an important role. So before that, I will give you some idea or insight about the meaning of distribution. In descriptive statistics, we deal with only data or values. And this is applicable for population. The exact values can be, descriptives can be computed only for population. But if you select data by sample, there is an associated probability in each value. So we have to study the probability. That is why we study probability. And using the probability, we can find out the chance of occurring each value for that characteristics. And also, the natural variables can be called as a random variable if the outcome is obtained by a sampling method. So that is why in statistics we use random variables. Why it is random variable? Because it is the values of the characteristics obtained as the outcome of the random experiment. So what is the outcome? The selection of sample. Okay. If you do an experiment in the laboratory, you repeat it 3 times, it is actually a random experiment. And in natural science people, they select subject at random. So that is the randomization. In everywhere there is a rule for randomization, and actually this problem is to be handled. There is another session which is called experimental design of experiments, that is a wide area. Okay. And within that there are certain common designs. They are called completely randomized design, randomized block design, Latin square design. Then, okay. So many other designs are available. So these people will decide which design is to be used in the laboratory, etc. So after deciding the design and experimentation, you will get data. And once you get the data, you have to estimate the values of the measures and test the hypothesis. Okay, this is the problem. Then once you define this random variable, then the data can be expressed in terms of probability models. The data can be expressed in terms of probability models. Okay. Such type of models are binomial model, binomial distribution, Poisson distribution, normal distribution, geometric distribution, exponential distribution, and gamma distribution, and there are many distributions. And these are all population models. That means these are the probability models of natural variables. Okay. And these models are suitable for particular types of data. For example, an experiment is dichotomous. That means which has only two possible outcomes, two category of outcomes. And the probability of each category is known, and the experiment is repeated some n times, and we are interested to compute the probability of getting a particular event out of these n trials. Then the distribution is called binomial distribution. And the probability model will be the n plus 1 the term of the binomial theorem. That is a plus b the all raised to n. Okay. So that is the r plus 1 the term. That is NCR into a raised to r into b raised to n minus r. Here a denotes the p-value, that is the probability of one outcome, and b denotes the probability of the second outcome. So you will get it as NCR into p raised to r into 1 minus p raised to n minus r. So that is why we get that model. So that model can be applied in any situation, whether the data having these properties. The first one, it must be a dichotomous experiment. Second, the probability of each outcome is known. And the next one, where we apply Poisson distribution. This is a distribution of rare events. For example, accidents, natural calamities, etc. There the chance of occurring small values are more compared to the larger values. So that model is e raised to minus lambda, lambda raised to x by x factorial, etc. So this model is suitable for a particular situation. Similarly, we have a large number of probability models suitable for particular data type, particular data. Depends on the type of data and the distribution, we have the models. So what is the importance of normal distribution? This is a distribution of a continuous variable. Continuous variable means this can take the value of the variable as any subset of the real line. Okay, it ranges from minus infinity to plus infinity. So it is a continuous variable. What are the properties? It must be exactly symmetric. Okay, that means skewness is 0. its height neither peak nor flat. It is mesocurtic, a bell-shaped curve. Since the shape of the curve guarantees the distribution properties of data. For example, 95% observations within mean minus 2 into standard deviation, mean plus 2 standard deviation. 99.73% data will be within mean minus 3 standard deviation, mean plus 3 standard deviation. These properties are normal distributions used in many applications. For example, in quality control, we use the second property, that is Six Sigma control limit. Okay. So if the production is within the Six Sigma control limit, it guarantees the non-defectiveness of the chance of non-defective product is 0.9973. So it ensures in 99.73% of products, it is non-defective. So the normal distribution play an important role in many applications. In error analysis also, the normal distribution is very important because the distribution of errors are normal. Measurement errors are normal. So wherever you use these measurement errors, analysis of measurement error, there we use the properties of normal distribution. And many natural variables having this type of distribution. Okay. Then what are the steps in statistical inference? So suppose you have a research problem. You made certain objectives of the research, and depended on or in consequence to the objectives, you formulate certain hypotheses about population measure. And our attempt is to find out estimate the best value of this population measure. And also we have to test how much confidence for that estimated value. So we select a sample. It must be a representative sample from the population. How do you get a representative sample? By applying proper random sampling method. And find an estimate of the population measure. And using this estimate, test the significance of the hypothesis. Okay. So these are the steps we used in statistical inference. Again, in estimation, the population mean can be estimated by sample mean, population proportion by sample proportion, population variance by sample variance, population standard deviation, sample standard deviation, etc. Even though the name is like this, there is some difference between the formula of population variance and sample variance, because the estimates must be unbiased one. So the estimate should have 4 properties. It must be unbiased, okay? It must be consistent, it must be sufficient, it must be efficient. An estimate is said to be a good estimate if it is unbiased, consistent, sufficient, and efficient. Unbiased means the expected value of the estimate should be exactly equal to the actual value. Consistency means if we increase the sample size, the estimate should converge to the population value. That is the consistency property. When we increase the sample size, the value of the estimates also converge to the population value. Sufficient means whatever information available in the sample should be used in computing the estimate. Verbally we can say that. Mathematically there are some formulas. I will just say the physical meaning of this. Sufficient means whatever information available in the sample should be used in the estimation process. And what is the meaning of efficiency? Efficiency in terms of variability. An estimate which having minimum variance is called the most efficient one. That means if there are two estimates with different variances, the one with the minimum variance is more efficient compared to other. Okay. So these are measures theoretically derived by confirming all these four properties. But at the same time, the population variance can be computed by the formula 1 by n sigma xi minus x bar square. But in the case of sample variance, the division factor should be n minus 1 instead of n. Even in the calculator, you can see two symbols, sigma n and sigma n minus 1. Sigma n denotes the population standard deviation and sigma n minus 1 denotes the sample standard deviation. Okay. So you can use the calculator to estimate the variances, the population variance and sample variance. But you have to choose the key accordingly. And I discussed about population distribution or natural distribution, but there is another kind of distribution in statistics. They are called sampling distribution. So what is the relevance of this sampling distribution? The parameters are the unknown quantities which are available in population distribution. For example, in the case of binomial distribution, there are two unknown quantities. They are the number of trials and probability of success, n and p. So they are called parameters. In Poisson distribution, the mean lambda, there is a value lambda which is called the parameter. It denotes the mean value. In normal distribution, usually mu and sigma. Mu is the mean and sigma is the standard deviation, but these are the parameters included in the model, probability model. And any other statistical measure can be expressed in terms of parameters. For example, in the case of binomial distribution, n is the number of trials and p is the probability success. In order to compute the mean value, you can multiply these two, n into p. In order to compute the variance, you can multiply n, p and 1 minus p. That is n p into 1 minus p. Similarly, you can find out skewness, kurtosis, everything, mean, median, mode, everything, in terms of n and p. And in the normal distribution, all these things will be in terms of mu and sigma. So the problem of estimation is the problem of estimating the values of the parameters of a distribution. Then, if we choose a random sample, I already said the estimates are random variables. Since the estimates are random variables, it having a probability distribution. All the random variables will have distribution, probability distribution. So the distribution of estimates or function of sample values are called sampling distribution. This is the difference between population distribution and sampling distribution. Population distribution is the natural distribution or the probability models of natural variables. It is not specific. Okay? It is not specific. For any characteristic which is dichotomous, which is having probability for each outcome and it can be repeated n times, then the number of success can be considered as a binomial distribution. We need not specify the variable. But in the case of sampling distribution, you have to specify it. What is the distribution of sample mean? Okay. What is the distribution of the sample variance? What is the distribution of the ratio of variances, etc. So in short, I can say that sampling distribution are distributions of functions of sample values and estimates are functions of sample values. So these are the distributions of estimates, or which is also called statistic singular. And what are the commonly used sampling distributions? Normal distribution having a property which is a population distribution as well as a sampling distribution. Then the sample size is large sample case. If you take a sample, then the distribution converges to the normal distribution. So the normal distribution having an important role in as a sampling distribution as well as a population distribution. And another important point, in statistical inference, we always use sampling distribution. So, in statistical inference, we use 4 distributions. They are normal distribution, T distribution, F distribution, and chi-square distribution. So now the question is, how do you understand this distribution? If you attempt to estimate the mean value, the mean value, you can use the sample mean. The distribution of sample mean will be normal for any population when the sample size is sufficiently large. But if the sample size is small and the data selected from a normal population, so please listen, there is another condition. If the data selected from normal population and sample size is, even if it is small, the sample mean converges to, or sample mean follows T distribution, which is also a symmetric distribution, not same as the normal distribution. So wherever we use the inference of mean values, you can use either normal test or t-test. So I shall make it clear where we use t-test, wherever we have to make inference about the mean value. And can we use z-test or normal test? Yes, in the case of mean. But the condition is sample size must be large enough. Then chi-square distribution is the square of normal variable. You know, the normal variable varies from -infinity to +infinity, and which is symmetric. And if you take the square of these values, it will convert it into the range 0 to infinity. Okay, that is obvious. A data which is varies from -infinity to +infinity is squared, the value will be positive. So its range of variation is 0 infinity, and it is a skewed curve. It is skewed to the right. So we can say that the distribution of the square of normal characteristics, normal variable, is chi-square. Okay. So since the variance is defined as the square of the variables, you know the definition, you know the formula of variance, 1/n sigma xi minus x bar square. So wherever we have to make inference about population variance, we can use chi-square distribution. Then F distribution is the distribution of the ratio of two variances. That means, suppose you have to compare the variability of two entities, then you can use F distribution. So these are the points to be remembered while applying statistics. How the statistical inferential techniques are applying, or there we use a particular distribution. If there is a test of a single population, you can use either T distribution or normal distribution. But there are conditions. A normal distribution, the sample size must be sufficiently large. For T distribution, the data must come from normal distribution. Then the comparison of two means, two population means, there also you can use T distribution or Z distribution. And for the variance test, we use chi-square distribution, but their condition, the data should come from normal population. And similarly, the data come from normal population. Two variances can be compared using F distribution. And also we can use this F distribution to compare the mean value of more than two populations. So that is why in analysis of variance also we use F test or F distribution, because the principle is different. Okay. So these are the importance of Z distribution, T distribution, F distribution, and chi-square distribution. And these four distributions play important role in any statistical testing problem. And if you applied any testing problem anywhere, definitely you might have seen one of these distributions. That is chi-squared A of a t or a z. Now, what is the testing hypothesis problem? What is a hypothesis? Hypothesis is nothing but a statement. Any statement it can be called as hypothesis. We are not sure about the rightness of that statement. That is called hypothesis. But what is a statistical hypothesis? It is a statement about a population parameter, because we are interested to study about the totality or population. So all the hypotheses in research are the statement about a population parameter. So they are called statistical hypotheses. Again, these hypotheses are divided into two. One is called null hypothesis, it is usually denoted by H0. And another one is alternate hypothesis, which is expressed as H1. Now the question is why the one is called null and the other is called alternate. A null hypothesis is a dummy hypothesis which is postulated against an alternate hypothesis which is in our interest. For example, a medicine is effective. It is an alternate hypothesis. So we postulate or we pose a null hypothesis which we call the medicine is not effective. There is no significant effectiveness of the medicine. Two population mean values are different. This is an alternate hypothesis. They are significantly different. This is an alternate hypothesis. There is no significant difference between these values. That is a null hypothesis. The slope of a relationship is 0. It is a null hypothesis. The slope is not equal to 0. Which is an alternate hypothesis, because the slope in the relation y equal to mx plus c, m is the slope. So slope means that is the rate of change of y with respect to x. Okay. So this is the difference between null hypothesis and alternate hypothesis. Anybody have any doubt on this slide? You can. How do we formulate a null hypothesis and how do we formulate an alternate hypothesis? Usually the hypothesis which is in our interest will be alternate. And null hypothesis is a dummy hypothesis. Any question regarding that?
I think there are no questions, sir. We shall continue.
Okay. So now, this testing problem is called a decision problem. This is an important area in statistics, that is decision problem. Okay, decision theory. So the testing is a much complex thing because of the uncertainty. So let us analyze a testing situation or a decision criteria or decision situation. In a decision problem, there are two states. They are called states of action and states of nature. States of action means what are the possible actions we have. And states of nature means what is the true state of that situation, that problem. And states of nature, the possibilities are the null hypothesis may be true or it may be false. And what are the possible states of action? We can reject the null hypothesis or we can accept the null hypothesis. Now we analyze the decision problem. These are the four combinations. When the states of nature is true, we rejected that. It is an error. Our decision is wrong. That is called type 1 error. When H0 is false, the null hypothesis is wrong and we rejected it. So it is the right decision. H0 is true, at the time we accepted it, it is the right decision. H0 was false, but we accepted it. It is again an error that is called type 2 error. So in any human decision, even in scientific decision, there is a possibility of two kinds of errors. They are called type 1 error and type 2 error. And what is type 1 error? We reject a true null hypothesis. What is type 2 error? We accept a false null hypothesis. Now we will take an analogy for this. Whether all our human decisions are like this, let us examine. This is a legal analogy. Suppose there is a case before the court. The prosecution says that the person accused is guilty. This is the case. So what is the hypothesis? The hypothesis is, null hypothesis, the person is not guilty. What is the alternate? The person is guilty. Because the prosecution charged the cases and their hypothesis is the person is guilty. What is the dummy hypothesis again? That the person is not guilty. And what are the states of nature? The person is innocent and or the person is guilty. Is not guilty or guilty. But the problem is we don't know. The decision maker don't know exactly whether the person is guilty or not. This is the decision problem. The decision maker perfectly know what is the real state of nature, then there is no decision problem. He can choose the correct decision. But unfortunately, in most of our decision problem, this real states of nature is unavailable. So the decision will come. The decision, possible decisions are, we can convict that person or we can acquit that person. Suppose we convict, what really happens? We rejected the hypothesis the person is not guilty. Okay? Acquitted means we accept the hypothesis that the person is not guilty. Then, suppose we convicted that person and he was not guilty. It is a wrong decision. It was a wrong decision. That is called type 1 error. The person was really guilty and he is convicted, the right decision. The person was not guilty and he is acquitted. Okay, that is also a right decision. But the person was guilty and he is acquitted, again it is a wrong decision, that is called type 2 error. You can analyze any of your decision in your real life, the decision will be like this. That is why most of our decisions, some decisions are wrong and some are correct. Okay? If the states of nature is perfectly known, there is no decision problem. You can always take right decision. What is the meaning of the states of nature is known? The population is completely available. The complete data is available without any uncertainty or ambiguity. If you have the complete data of a system, there is no problem to understand that system. But unfortunately, we always take decisions based on the partial information available. So if you are depending a partial information to make a decision, the error is inevitable. And this problem is called the decision problem. Any question regarding this? Can you understand this problem? If you cannot understand this problem, the testing that means you are not properly understood. Not properly understood the testing problem. It will affect the inferential reporting also. Okay, any question?
No, sir.
Participants, any questions?
Okay, if there is no question,
We shall continue.
okay, then the problem is, in this scenario, two decisions can be correct, two are wrong. This is the most risky ratio, 50%. There is a chance of 50% correct decision, 50% wrong decision. So we are intended to take better decisions. We need more confidence. So what is the way out of this? That is called the solution of this decision problem, statistical solution. And why I taken this legal analogy? In judiciary also, they use this statistical procedure in decision making. Okay. The first question is, can you avoid both the errors completely? Can you take a decision without any possibility of these two errors? The answer is no, never it is possible. Unless you have complete data or complete information. So, suppose I decided to remove the type 1 error completely. I have a decision. I never convict a person who is innocent. At the same time, the decision maker don't know the person is really guilty or not. He has to depend the information available before the court in terms of the documents and arguments and witness. And in all these situations, there is possibility of error and manipulation. The document, which is not perfect, the argument, which is not perfect, and the witness, we cannot say that it is perfectly true. So at all state of evidence, information, there is possibility of error. So if the decision maker decide I never convict an innocent person, the only one option is he acquit everybody. If he acquit everybody, all the guilty person will be acquitted, then type 2 error will be the maximum. And similarly, if I decided to remove the type 2 error completely, that means I should not acquit any guilty person. And there also the problem of lack of information. So the only option is convict everybody. So all the innocent person will be convicted. So the type 1 error will be the maximum. So this is the complication, the complex situation. These two errors are what we call that complements. If one gets reduced, the other will increase. Okay. Now the statistical solution, that is called Neyman-Pearson approach. That approach says that this is called classical inference. Okay. There is another inference which is called Bayesian inference that I think somebody mentioned in the inaugural section, Bayesian inference. We are discussing classical inference. Okay. And now the question is, what is the solution to this problem? So we just examine whether both the errors are equally harmful. So what is the answer? Whether both the errors are equally harmful?
No.
Or can you say one is more harmful than the other?
Type
Anybody?
2 is more harmful than type 1.
Type 2 is more harmful than type 1. Is it? Or type 1 is more harmful than type 2? Which is correct?
Type 2 is more harmful than type 1.
If so, suppose a guilty person is acquitted. Okay. Another one is an innocent person is convicted. What happens? If an innocent person is convicted, he has to...
Type 1. Type 1 is harmful.
Yeah, that is why you see in a common saying, okay, 1000 കുറ്റവാളികൾ രക്ഷപ്പെട്ടാലും ഒരു നിരപരാധി പോലും ശിക്ഷിക്കപ്പെടരുതെന്ന് നമ്മൾ പറയാറില്ലേ? So that is the logic behind. So in scientific decision, what is its significance? A null hypothesis, for example, in a medical research, a null hypothesis medicine is not effective, alternate is effective. Suppose I wrongly decided a non-effective medicine is effective, it will come to the market. Okay, lot of people will consume it. It will be more dangerous than not accepting an effective medicine as not effective. They rejected that medicine. Now the question is why this medicine is rejected. The reason is your experiment were wrong. The data having some problem. So what should do? You repeat the experiment and you produce more accurate data and definitely the medicine will be accepted. But if wrongly we accept that medicine is effective, it will make harm. It will be harmful for the society. So that is why before the court, the judge should decide. So what is the perception of the judge before when we take a particular case? The judge should have a perception. This person is not guilty until it is proved. മനസ്സിലായോ? ഡിസിഷൻ മേക്കർ എപ്പോഴും അങ്ങനെ തീരുമാനിക്കാവൂ. നൾ ഹൈപ്പോസിസ് ട്രൂ ആണെന്ന് until it is proved. So it is the duty of the prosecution to prove this person is guilty. Until it proved, the judge will have the perception the person is not guilty. If he have the perception otherwise, it will be a biased decision. In order to avoid the biasness, all the decisions will be under the assumption that the null hypothesis is true. Okay? In scientific inference, it is the duty of the data to prove the alternate is true. If there is sufficient information in the sample or data to prove the alternate is true, definitely we will reject the null hypothesis. This is the Neyman-Pearson approach. This is the logic of decision. So now, but you cannot remove type 1 error completely. So you can fix that error. That error fixed is called level of significance. Have you heard about level of significance? Anybody? Significance level? Anybody heard about level of significance?
No, sir.
Which is called alpha value, level of significance. Have you heard? Anybody heard about confidence level?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if you go through any literature, definitely you can see confidence value. Significance level is the complement of confidence. For example, the confidence is 95%, level of significance is 5%. The confidence is 99%, level of significance is 1%. So the decision with having minimum level of significance is the best decision. So the decision maker has the right to choose this level of significance. You can do the test at 1% or 5% or 10% as you wish. So the criteria is, rule of decision is, while fixing probability of type 1 error or level of significance, we choose the decision with the minimum type 2 error. This is the rule of decision. Fix the type 1 error and choose the decision with the minimum type 2 error. And you need not worry about this theoretical aspect. Theoretically, this type of decision rules are defined in statistics. But this is the principle of deciding these rules, decision rules. This is called the decision problem. If you are aware about this decision rule, definitely the reporting will be very easy. The reporting of the output will be very easy. Usually people will ask, sir, what is the meaning of p-value? What is the meaning of level of significance? How do you give the statistical statement? For example, a test is significant. How do you write it? So you can say that it is significant at 1% level because the p-value. What is the p-value? If you are using any statistical software, it will report the p-value. P-value is the minimum level of significance. the p-value is less than 0.01, we say that the test is significant at a 99% confidence. The p-value is less than 0.05, we say that the confidence is 95%. Okay. So then, okay, and the probability of type error. This is the rule of decision. Then, there are two categories of tests. They are called parametric test and non-parametric test. Okay. What are the categories of test? Parametric test and non-parametric test. Again, in order to understand the parametric test and non-parametric test, we should go to that scale, slide scale. Okay. If the data satisfies, if the data is continuous, quantitative, and which follow normal distribution, you can go for parametric test. All the parametric tests having the assumption of normal distribution, except the normal test, Z test. There the condition is sample size should be large. For the t test, chi-square test, and f test, the condition is assumption is the data is normal. So if anybody is using statistical inference by using software or manually, the first step is not testing the hypothesis. The first step is check whether the data satisfies the normality property. There are two methods to check the normality. At least the data must be symmetric. You can go for any graphical procedure or you can go for any test procedure. First, confirm the data follows normality. Once the data is normal and satisfies the assumptions, then you can go for parametric test. And suppose the data is in ordinal or nominal scale, and if it is, definitely it may not be normal. And in that situation, you can go for non-parametric methods. Okay, the nominal scale, we will do some other test that is called the chi-square test usually, which depends only the frequency. So where do we use non-parametric? If the data not satisfies the assumption of parametric test. Okay. So now there is a question, then why should we directly go to the non-parametric test? Because there is no distributional assumptions. The only condition is the data must be selected by a random method. And why should we check all these assumptions, this complicated procedure? Why don't we go directly to non-parametric? The reason is the precision of the parametric estimate, parametric test is more than the precision of the non-parametric. Okay. So these are the points to be remembered while choosing a parametric test and a non-parametric test. Then for each type of hypothesis, there are parallel tests in non-parametric for the parametric test. Then important parametric tests. What are the parametric tests? Test for mean of population. You can go for t-test. Test for equality of means of two populations. You can go for t-test. Test for equality of means of three or more populations. There you can go for analysis of variance, F-test. To compare the variance of two, you can go for F-test. That is also a parametric test. Comparison of variance. Okay. So these are the important parametric tests, commonly used parametric tests. Again, this test of mean of a population means a univariate case. Test of equality of means a two population means the variable is same, but there are two sets of data. And these two sets of data may be in two kinds. The first one, the samples are independent. Second one, the samples are dependent. Dependent means a pairwise data, before and after. Before giving a treatment, what was the value? After giving a treatment, what will be the value? For example, you take the case of blood sugar. What was the value before starting the medicine? What is the value after starting the medicine, after taking the medicine? This is called a paired data. So for each individual, there will be two values before and after. Okay. Another situation, I have taken 20 students and given a test and measured the values. I have selected 30 students from another group and I apply the same test on them and compare the effect of these two. It is an independent sample test. Okay. Then if you are using any software, you can see this paired t-test and the independent sample t-test. And this ANOVA is a generalization of independent sample t-test. Equality of means for two or more populations. Then what is the details about students t-test formula? There are two assumptions. Sample size is small. There is no problem if the sample size is small, okay, because it will convert it to normality. And sample from a normal population, that is a must. This is must. This should be there. What is the logic of testing? What is the procedure? You see, there are two types of hypothesis: null hypothesis, alternate. Null hypothesis is mean is equal to a given value. There are different possible alternates. The mean is not equal to mu naught, the mean is less than mu naught, or mean is greater than mu naught. If the hypothesis is denoted by this not equal to, which is called two-tailed, because the value can be on either side. But these two are called on-tailed. These two are called on-tailed. And this is called two-tailed. And depends on the type of hypothesis, the decision rule will be different. This is the decision rule. First, we calculate mean and standard deviation from the sample. So, this descriptive statistics or statistical measure play an important role in inference also. Okay. The test value always match with the descriptive statistical measures. And this is the manipulation usually people will do. They report the real statistical measures and they do some manipulation at the time of testing. And if he is not aware about that, definitely a person who is good in statistics can easily identify there is a manipulation happened at the time of testing. Then using this value, we compute a statistic which is called t-statistic, which is the estimated mean value minus assumed mean value by standard error. This is test statistic. And if you do it manually, we compute a table value from t-table, student t-table, and you have two values, computed value and the table value. But if you are using software, you need not bother about it. You just put the data, it will give the t-statistic and the p-value. The p-value and the t-statistic. Even in Excel, you can do all these tests. In Excel itself, there is a data analysis window. And within that data analysis, you can do almost all the parametric tests and correlation, regression, everything is there in Excel, MS Excel. But you should activate that data analysis window by going to this option, Excel options. There you can activate that data analysis window. And once this data analysis window activated, you can use Excel itself to go for this parametric test. There it will give all this t value, t alpha value, p value, everything. And what is the rule of decision? When the alternate is mu is not equal to mu naught, reject the null hypothesis if absolute value of the calculated value is greater than the table value. We compare like this. But if mu is less than mu naught is the alternate, because this is a left tail test, left tail. It tests whether the value in the left side or right side. This is the left side test. So reject H naught if t is less than minus t alpha. And if the alternate is mu is greater than mu naught, which is called right tail test, then reject H naught if t is greater than t alpha. This is the decision rule if you do the test manually. But in the case of, if you are using a software, you need not bother about this rule. You just check the t value and p value. If the p-value is less than 0.05, you can say that the test is significant at 5%. And if the p-value is less than 0.01, you can say that the test is significant at 1%. This is the procedure of testing parametric test. Any question? Okay.
We'll continue, sir.
Now, this is an important parametric test, analysis of variance. Already I mentioned that this test is used in many situations. The first one, a comparison of mean of more than two populations. Then in all statistical model construction, all statistical models, regression modeling, then other linear models and non-linear models, for example, logistic regression, multinomial logistic regression, binomial logistic regression, Poisson model, and this multiple regression model. In all these models, we use analysis of variance. So analysis of variance is an inference technique to test the effectiveness of the model. And then why we use this ANOVA in the testing equality of means? And also there is another question, why it is called analysis of variance? And even if we use it for testing equality of means. So I will explain this point. But before that, in order to go for an ANOVA, you must ensure that the data satisfies these three assumptions. Data selected by random method, normal data must be normal, and the variances of each category should be same. Suppose there are three populations, the variances of each population must be same. So the data must come from normal distribution with the constant variance. This is the assumption. And the data selected by a random method. And the logic behind the analysis of variance is, I already said that in order to compare two variances, we use ANOVA. And that is why it is called analysis of variance. So I shall explain the situation. If you take any, I think I shall explain this thing at the time of regression modeling. It will be more effective because in regression modeling, I can specify the model itself, and at that time I will explain. Anyway, in ANOVA can be used in all type of designs. CRD, that is one-way ANOVA, completely randomized design. Two-way ANOVA, that is randomized block design. Three-way ANOVA, that is Latin square design. And factorial design, and split plot design, and there are several design, nested design, etc. Now, all the statistical design for inference, we use analysis of variance. So analysis of variance is a very important inferential techniques in statistics. And I shall explain about chi-square test. This is a parametric as well as a non-parametric test. So chi-square test can be used for different kinds of data. For example, it can be used in the case of testing your proportion. Okay, even a nominal data. The proportion of male is same as proportion of female. It is a nominal data. There also you can use chi-square test. Suppose two qualitative characteristics are related. Suppose we study the relationship. If the characteristics are qualitative, either nominal or ordinal, you can go for chi-square test. But if the characteristics are quantitative, you can go for correlation coefficient. That is called Pearson's correlation coefficient. That is familiar with it. More specifically, if the data is nominal, the test is chi-square, associated test. And there are certain correlation measures, kappa measures or something like that. SOMSD, etc. That is available in all software. If the data is ordinal, you can go for rank correlation, Spearman's rank correlation, etc. There are several rank correlations. And there we use t-test. The data is quantitative, then we go for Pearson's correlation coefficient, and inference we use t-test. You see, the selection of test will be different depends on the scale of data. The objective is same, to study the relationship between the variables. But first we check what is the kind of data. If it is nominal, okay, the chi-square test and the associated correlation measures. Whether the data is ordinal, okay, rank correlation, and the associated test is t-test. Whether the data is quantitative, okay, you can go for Pearson's correlation coefficient, and the associated test is t-test. So there is a criteria for selecting this test. You don't have the license to use any test in any situation. But this chi-square test used in a wide range of problems to test the independence of two qualitative characteristics, that is associationship study, to test the proportions of two or more categories, to test the variance, which is a parametric test. Okay. So in many situations, you will use chi-square. Even in error analysis, we use chi-square test for inference. Okay. So chi-square tests play an important role in statistical inference. And also regarding the assumption, the case of testing an independence of qualitative characteristics, there is no assumption. Only the data must be random. To test proportion, there is no other assumption. But in the case of test of variance, the data must be normal. The case of because this is a parametric test. Okay, the others are non-parametric. There is no need of any data assumption. And let us see what are the non-parametric parallels. In order to test the equality of means for two independent samples, usually we use t-test. The non-parametric is Mann-Whitney, Kolmogorov-Smirnov, etc. If the test corresponding to the ANOVA, which is called Kruskal-Wallis test, equality of means of more than two independent samples, Kruskal-Wallis test. Wilcoxon test, equality of means of two dependent samples or paired t-test, the parallel test of paired t-test. That is Wilcoxon. Friedman test, equality of means of more than two dependent samples. So these are the non-parametric parallel of parametric. But what we should be aware about that? We should be aware about that which test is the best suitable test in a particular situation. So what are the points to be remembered for this decision? First, you should check what is the scale of data. Second one, if the scale is quantitative, interval or ratio, then check the data assumption, whether the data is normal or any other assumption is there for that test. So how do we check the assumptions in a software, using a software? In order to check the normality, in strict sense it should be normal, but even if it is approximately symmetric, it will not affect seriously the inference. So the symmetricity can be checked by constructing a histogram or a frequency plot or a frequency curve, etc. But that decision may not be exact. In order to confirm whether the data is normal, you could go for normality test. Okay. So there is a test which is called Shapiro-Wilk test and the Kolmogorov-Smirnov test for checking normality. Okay. So all these things are available in R software, open software, or any other commercial software. In R software, it is very easy to do all these things because the simple scripts are there. Only a single command for ANOVA. ANOVA, the command is AOV, A analysis of variance, AOV, and just give the data. Okay. Similarly, the t-test and all these non-parametric tests, the command is very simple. Okay. So you can do all these things in R software or any other commercial software like SAS or SPSS, etc. Sysdata, etc. But the problem is not using the statistics or using the software. It is very easy to learn a software. If you spend some or 10 or 15 hours before a system, you can easily learn the software. But the problem is, even if the software is there, how do you decide which analytic techniques to be used? This is the most important thing. So you have to study the basics of statistics in order for data analysis or research analysis. If you select the tool wrongly, there is no use for that inference. Because the outcome of all this inference depends on many conditions. Okay. So there is a classification for this analysis: nominal, ordinal, interval, ratio. Further, whether the data satisfies assumptions or not. If the data is quantitative and satisfies assumptions, go for parametric test. Okay. If the data is nominal, go for chi-square test. For other cases, if the data is independent, you can go for the non-parametric test. So these types of classifications are there. Even while using statistical measures, also this classification is there. The data is nominal, go for mode. Data is ordinal, you can use mode and median. Data is quantitative, you may use other measures. And if you are using a nominal data, a ordinal data, you can use median as the best measure. And there the scattering measure will be quartile deviation. You report Q1 value, Q3 value, and range of that. But if the data is quantitative, we can use arithmetic mean and the standard deviation, provided the data should not be highly skewed. The data is highly skewed, that will be considered as equivalent to an ordinal data. So that is an important point. Even if the data is in ratio or interval scale, but it is highly skewed, you don't have any license to use arithmetic mean or the associated measures. Better to go for median measure. For example, the mean income, national level, better to use the median, even the variable is a quantitative variable, because the income is a skewed distribution. And also, there are some other points to be remembered while analyzing the data. Suppose the data is skewed, how do we convert that skewed data into a symmetric data? There are certain transformations available, which is generally called box-Cox transformations, and which includes logarithmic transformation, square root transformation, etc., etc. And you can apply the transformation and try to convert it into symmetry. If you can find out any transformation which is worth it to convert it into normality or symmetry, you can go for parametric test. If all these transformation fail to convert it into normality, then the only option is go for non-parametric test. So this much criteria to be followed while doing an analysis of data. But more interestingly, many people are analyzing the data without considering any of these problems. They just take a software and put some data, there will be an output, and they reproduce that output and write something about that. This is happened in research. So what will be the outcome? The quality of that research will be that much deteriorated. Because the data analysis is not an easy one. You should spend much time and experience in using the data analysis. So you should go, in fact, you should learn the theoretical aspects, not the how to run a software. Anybody can learn or how to run a software, because all these softwares are user-friendly, menu-driven software. If you click at somewhere, you will learn everything. But the software cannot help which is the decision to be taken by you, or which test is to be used, which model is to be used, what are the data conditions, how do we interpret that data, what is the solution of that problem, all these things. So what I tried to convey you is in this aspect. These are the conceptual things in research. So you must be aware about these things from the beginning of this problem selection to make the research is a quality, to ensure the quality of research. Selecting the problem, literature survey, identifying the characteristics, design the experiment, and then data collection and the accuracy and precision of the data, and then formulate the hypothesis and administrating statistical techniques for analysis. And then all these things are about observational studies or field studies and experimental studies, not about the theoretical study. Then even in theoretical study, there will be a problem of the empirical support of the theory. And wherever you like to provide the empirical support, again you have to use statistics. Okay. If the research is purely theoretical, for example, a research in mathematics which is purely theoretical, there is no need of statistics. You don't need to apply any statistics. But you developed a theory and you have to check it empirically by collecting data. Definitely you have to use statistics. Okay. If you are not using statistics, that work is incomplete. For example, you can construct a model, but you have not done any statistical test. That model is incomplete. So you construct the model and test it and say the effectiveness of that model, then only the work will be complete. Okay, this is the points I have to mention about this testing or inferential problem. This is the second section. So there are 15 minutes. 10 minutes is there. There remains 10 minutes. Anybody have any doubt, you can ask. And we will have a discussion on this topic.
Thank you, sir. Now it is the time for discussion. Participants, if any queries, please unmute your mic